Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of, well, I would say Silver Patch Notes Rundown, but it has shifted to Gold Patch Notes Rundown. Unfortunately, I will have to rename the series because between last patch and this one, I did attain Gold in all three queues, so I can no longer call myself a Silver player. So, welcome to the current episode of Gold Patch Notes Rundown. Um, so we're looking at patch 9.17. Don't worry, the quality will still be just as bad as ever. And as always, I am just as right as before. Anyway, we're going to ignore what they say for their intro and dive right into it. Starting out with Aurelion Sol. Haven't seen this guy in a while. Let's see, so start making him more vulnerable to counterplay in the early game so that have room to buff his scaling and presence in the late game. His adjusted W should also make him a more approachable champion to those new to him, with clearer indicators of success and more satisfying in-game payoff. Well, let's see how that goes. So they nerfed his damage early, or just overall, this damage got nerfed. Down by 4, 5. Trying to see. Okay, so rather than growing to by 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, then 5 suddenly. Okay, 5 until then, and then 10. It's growing by 2 per level, and then 3 for a couple levels, 5 for like 4 levels, and then 10. Okay, so probably still growing at a similar rate, but yeah, in the end, each hit's slightly lower. Higher AP ratio early, lower late. Okay. So that means buying AP early will actually be a bigger deal for him, so I could see that affecting his build. I know that Rod of Ages is popular on him, so maybe buying the Blasting Wand part rather than the Catalyst of Aeons. Maybe that would be a better buy. Although, removed ability inhibiting crowd control no longer nullifies center of the universe. That'll actually be really nice. So stunning him means his stars will still continue. So I'd say, in general, that just because of this, that's a decent buff. Star Surge, cooldown, up early, down by a lot, late. Movement speed, 10% to 20%, so I'm not quite sure. I think that might be the outward movement speed as you're moving. If you're faster than your star, the star will speed up to catch up with him. That's a nice QOL buff, because it means you won't be outrunning it when you use your E. Overall, solid buff. Okay, new, let it rip. When he pushes his stars out to the outer limit, they gain increased damage and rotate at a high but decaying speed. So it speeds up temporarily? Interesting. After 3 seconds, or if he reactivates it early, the stars will retract and gain... Oh, okay, so it retracts and gives him movement speed decaying over 1.5 seconds. I don't like that change, first of all. I liked the toggle nature of it, because it had a cost to turn it on. It wasn't just you can turn it on and turn it off in a second and you're fine. It's when you turn it on, you want to keep it on for efficiency, but at the same time, you want to turn it off when you can because you're burning through mana. So it gave a nice trade-off. Personally, I think this is a bad change. Mana, so it goes from 40 mana cost plus X per second. Now it's just a flat mana cost. This means that, especially at early levels, unless you are, maybe they've done the math on it already. Unless you were running it for more than 2 seconds, it would cost more. So the mana cost is down, and then the cooldown is up early, down late. So, cooldown I think is kind of a placebo change. I don't know if that's gonna have much. Actually, no. With the change to this, that's a pretty major change. I think you're still gonna max that first, but you're gonna have to be a lot more careful about how you use it, I guess. That'll be interesting to see. Personally, I don't like the change, but I haven't played him enough to know if you really do end up toggling it a lot, and if so, that may end up not making a difference. And then Comet of Legend. Remove the passive, no longer gain bonus movement speed when move. Okay, so that actually ignores what I've said about this. If you're faster than the star will speed up to catch up with him. So simply moving in the same direction, you're not going to outrun the star anymore. But range increased across the board, so that's a healthy buff to it actually, which is nice because early on, you'd use it to get out of fountain and you'd barely make it to the edge of your base, whereas now you're gonna make it probably to the tier 2 tower, which is actually nice to have a bit of a push outward. That's going down mid lane, by the way. I know it's a little farther out for bot and top lanes, but yeah, I like that. Cooldown up by 20 at each rank, which means buying cooldown reduction is more important, especially if you want to be roaming with it, which you do. And then speed is increased. So, yeah, overall cooldown reduction is going to be a bigger deal on him now, just with all of these changes. Because yeah, the cooldowns are lower late, but the cooldowns are higher, especially with this, it's just higher across the board, but with these, it's higher early. And so getting some early CDR so that then, yeah, you'll be maxing W first, but what about E and what about Q? You want that CDR so that you're not penalized as much by it. Overall, with the exception of the W, I think that the Q and the E are kind of nice changes. And then this is honestly a solid buff, even though it looks like it's just QOL. That's big. Okay. Galio. Q cooldown decrease, W... Okay, so increases mana regen, or rather rounded it out. That's not going to make much of a difference. Oh yeah, they actually even say rounding out. Okay. Cooldown dropped by 2 seconds early and then goes down by half a second rather than 1 full second. Yeah, that's decent. It means if you're playing him as support, you'll be able to poke more often. Obviously, mid lane, you're going to use that to clear your waves more often, stuff like that. Shield of Duran, minimum damage goes up by 10 early, 30 late, so is that going up by plus 15 instead of plus 10? Okay, and then max damage, which should be triple that, goes up. Okay. I don't know if you really take that for the damage. Usually I see people take it for the taunt, for the engage, so I think that is a placebo buff, but this alone is a nice buff to have. I guess if you're playing more tank, this is going to be decent, but otherwise, yeah. Mostly placebo for mid lane, I think. For bot lane, and if you're for tank, that'll be nice. Callista. Okay, so some stat buffs. AD goes up, which if I recall correctly, she still only does 90% of her AD with each auto attack. So just remember that it's gonna be basically 62 instead of rounding up, and instead of 60 and a half. So you gain 1.5 damage per auto attack at level 1. Mana goes up. That honestly looks like they're rounding it. Mana growth, that's big, because that means she'll have plus 180 mana by the end of the game. Or, sorry, plus 170. Which should be enough for an ability caster too, especially her ultimate. So overall, I haven't seen her much, so obviously buffs are going to be nice for her. I think this one's fairly minor. This one's major. This one's the most minor of them. This one, obviously, buffing someone's level 1 AD is important. But I think this is going to be the bigger one, especially for late game. Okay. Kale. Sorry about that there. I've got it in full screen. Anyway. Kale. Passive bonuses, adjusted, keyed. I'm just going to go through it rather than reading that. Passive. Ascends to a flame form. Okay, so they're swapping when she gets those. So does that mean she gets ranged at level 6? And then a flame, is that when she gets the that's when she gets the damage in waves, I think. The AoE damage. I think that's decent. It means that she'll trade differently. Her clear is definitely gonna be her wave clear is gonna be worse until 11. If those forms are what I remember. I'm actually going to pull that up real quick. Anyway, looking at that, rather than simply getting bonus movement speed towards enemies, it's now in all directions. I think that's a decent change. It's going to be more frustrating to play against this because it means that she can get her passive and then dip out and kind of harass with it. Let me double check. Okay. Arisen is when she becomes... Okay, yeah. So she becomes ranged at level 6. And then at level 11, she deals AoE damage when she's not attacking towers and stuff like that. Okay, attack sources, basic attacks, all basic attacks now build that up. Okay, so I'm not sure how that's going to, what that's going to change. Attack speed, she doesn't get more attack speed after she hits Arisen, so that'll be 6. After she hits 6, she won't get bonus attack speed. Fire waves no longer deal true damage. This, oh, that is a massive change because she used to, with the true damage, that meant that she was a time bomb. Once she hits 16, it doesn't matter if you're a tank. It doesn't matter if you're an AD or a support or whatever. If she can catch you, she's going to shred you. Tanks, it's just a matter of she has to get enough auto attacks, but your resistances aren't an issue. ADs, obviously, she'll just pop you real fast. So, okay. No longer deal true damage. So, looking at the wiki, just because I have this up already, it's magic damage. Okay. That's something... Yeah, magic damage is something you can build against, especially ADs tend to have QSS into Merc Sim, which gives decent magic resist. So, when Kale's in her transcendent form, she gains it. Okay, that's a nice trade-off. It means that she'll be able to weave in and out of fights better. 575 is a bit long. It's longer than a lot of ADCs. I think 550 is the most common range. But overall, good change there, especially with this. Okay. Q, Radiant Blast now refunds 50% of the ability's mana for each champion hit with it. Okay. So, using it to clear is obviously going to be less appealing than using it to poke, which I'm pretty sure was the case anyway. But now if you hit 2 people, it's a free ability. You cast it and get the mana back immediately. So I'd say maybe just make it so you get 50% back when you hit a champion. Because otherwise, imagine if you hit 5 people, you just got 2.5 times the cost, which, this doesn't say the cost. The cost here, 70 to 90. So yeah, imagine you suddenly get 185 mana. No, sorry, 175 mana off of hitting 5 people. That would be if it was rank 1, and it's obviously not going to be. I think that'll need to be adjusted. Cast delay. Okay, reduce that. Cast time. They've standardized that, so it'll be easier to play around. That's a good change, in my opinion. Speed is slowed down, and range is decreased. Okay. So it's harder to hit on people. I forgot that it is a skill shot, isn't it? Okay, resistance reduction. So it lasts longer, but it's less of a resistance reduction. I'm okay with that, to be honest. Although cooldown, yeah, she won't be able to have perma resist shred because it's an 8-second cooldown minimum, which means 4.8 seconds. So you'll have a small window at the very least. Fixed a bug. I'll ignore that. E, Starfire Spellblade. Which one is that? Oh yeah, that's a basic attack reset. Okay. Bonus magic damage is decreased, but the ratio got doubled. And it's of missing health. Okay, and then the on-hit ratio, which is the passive portion, also got buffed. Okay, so we're gonna see Kale building more AP. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'll have to crunch some numbers on when this evens out. Well, duh. Once you're at 400 AP or above, this evens out. So you'll need a lot more AP in order to deal as much damage with your E. However, this will still be the same, so I'm not sure that it's going to change her build too much. Actually, yeah, it will. It will. Because she'll get a lot more benefit from the AP here. And honestly, this is a 25% increase, so no, that's going to change it. Okay, and then R, Divine. Okay. So the cost goes down to 0. Okay. I kind of like that change, to be honest. It's partially because with the way it works now, she can't just cast it on herself and keep shredding people, unlike pre-rework Kale. But also, it just it means that you're not going to be stuck in as many bad situations where you go, oh wait, I don't have mana to do anything at all. So overall, I think that's an okay change. AoE radius going up by 25, that's a placebo buff. The real buffs are going to be this, if you can use it right. And then this if you're building AP. Oh, and then obviously this, starting at level 11, that's going to be a nice buff. Overall, though, I want to say that she got, maybe not nerfed, but she got adjusted in a direction, as I said, she got adjusted, and hopefully, yeah, she and her opponent should now have more influence on whether or not she gets there, ascending to a god. So yeah, overall, I think it's a good change. Leona. Really lock onto the that she fares well against. Okay, so Q cooldown down. Obviously a buff. I don't know if that's going to really make her more played. Her stun is for like a second, I think. Which honestly isn't. It's not game breaking that it's going to be a second shorter cooldown. Sorry, I'm trying to pull that up. Yeah, it's a 1 second stun. So with cooldown 40% CDR, that's 3 seconds now instead of 3.6. You're going to get a half-second extra window if she's got max cooldown. I don't see that really being a big issue, but I think it's a nice kind of quality of life buff. Maybe a placebo. Lucian, base AD up from 61. Okay, so basically, very similar change to Callista, where going from 60.5 to 63 for her, he's going 61 to 64. So slightly easier to last hit. Passive. When disguised, Nico can select herself to deactivate her disguise, putting it on a 2-second cooldown. Oh, yeah, that's actually really nice, because I'm surprised that wasn't built in. Because otherwise you're kind of trapped in whichever form you take before putting it on cooldown. I wouldn't necessarily say this is a buff. I'd say this is just QOL that should have been there in the first place. Okay, Pantheon. Q thrust now gain execute damage. Oh dear. E monster damage reduction removed. Okay. So thrusting is spear, releasing it within... Okay, so just like the quick tap. Now increases the physical damage on targets below... Okay. Matching a fully hold. Okay, so if somebody is below a quarter health, simply tapping it will deal the same damage as if you completely charge it and throw it. Um, so I guess New Pantheon hasn't been as strong as people feared he would be. So honestly, I'd say that's a good buff. I am 20 minutes into this already, and I'm only partway. Kind of getting there. So we'll see. But I'll try to speed this up. All right, E no longer reduces damage against non-epic monsters. I haven't been seeing him play jungle much. I've seen him top and I've seen him mid. I've seen him jungle once, but he got destroyed absolutely horribly. So I wouldn't necessarily say he's mainly played it in the jungle, but nerf to jungle Pantheon for those who played him there. I think this is a solid buff for him, though. It means that now you have more outplay potential, especially when you get to those skirmishes where you're both really close to the kill. So that's actually something that you will want to watch out for, though. Okay, Keyonna. Base damage decreased, our cooldown flattened. Isn't that the reverse of a change they made earlier? I feel like they just made that change. I'm going to pull the wiki up while I go over that. Keyonna, if I can spell her name right. Okay, anyway. E, audacity. So that's simply the dash that does damage. They decrease the base by 10 at all ranks. Okay. That's okay. Little nerf. And then this, they flattened it to 120 at all ranks. That's a little aggressive in my opinion. I mean, I know that she's been doing strong, but that's a net nerf. Yeah, 9.15. So the first one of these that I did, actually, her cooldown changed from 100 at all ranks to scaling like this, and now they've changed it to 120 at all ranks. I think that if they just changed that back to 100 and admit that they're reverting it, those coupled with her near constant ults later is a bit too overbearing throughout the whole game. Yeah, no, just change it back to what it was at 100. I'll be interested to see if they change that again in a future patch. Okay. Rise. Base magic resist increased. Okay, so giving him a mild stat boost. He's going to be slightly better against mages, especially early. I don't know what... I would assume he gets Sork shoes, but I don't know what the rest of his build is. I'm fine with that. Okay, Zyra. Arc cost flattened, cooldown decreased. Okay, so I didn't realize that it scaled so hard. So 100 mana all ranks. That kind of brings it in line with the majority of champions in the game. Other than Kale, obviously, because hers just changed. But yeah, 100 mana is kind of the go-to for champion ults. And then cooldown increased by 20 at each rank. I like that. Be prepared to see more Zyra. The damage didn't go up at all, so I expect to see more Zyra support because that's where she's been played a lot more most recently. But simply the fact that she'll have her mana, or she'll have more mana in fights, and she'll have her ult up more often, means she's got a lot more play potential, especially post 6. So, solid buff to Zyra. Okay, beyond just 10 champions, updated to include 10% of the... Oh, I remember this, actually. Someone made a Reddit thread about this, calling out Riot, saying, hey, you promised to do this. So, officially at 145, goes up to 15. So they actually should have... Oh yeah, 10%. What am I thinking? I'm thinking of dividing by 15 for some reason. No, okay, yeah. So at 145, that rounds up to 15. So... one more champion that's free to play, so for those of you new to the game or still collecting all the champions, obviously that's going to be nice for you. Okay, bug fixes, I'm going to ignore those, although someone complained about this on the Skarner mains Discord, because Reksai is basically new Mordekaiser in that she has a crap ton of bugs, and this is the one bug that helped her rather than hurt her, and it's the one that they fix. So that's interesting. And then upcoming skins. This one looks nice. I've seen some videos, so it's actually not bad. Nocturne hasn't had a skin since the what? It's the one that they made that like it had Witch Doctor, not Swain, Singed. There we go. The Witch Doctor Singed, and he was like a nightmare or something. I think that was his last skin. So it's good to see him get a skin again. And then these honestly look fairly generic to me. This one looks like Lulu, flat out. That's going to be very confusing. They're going to need to do something about that because it does not help with champion clarity. Anyway, and then they all get chromas. So that's the end of my patch notes. I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free, leave a comment, tell me what I got wrong, tell me what I did right. Tell me what changes you think were better than I expected them to be. I haven't been playing much in the past couple of days. I did, play a lot this past week, prepping for Clash, and then played Clash on Saturday and got first place in my bracket with my friends. Tell me how you did with Clash. I want to hear. But as always, feel free to argue. Just be prepared. As usual, I am a silver player, so I am always right, never wrong. And I will freely tell you so. Anyway, get out on the Rift, and good luck.